Hello again, hope everyone's doing well. As you can probably tell from the title, this video is, in my opinion, one of the most important topics I'm going to make a video on, especially for new collectors, because it's something that no one ever talks about, but it's something that's very apparent to me and quite obvious if you're looking for it in the footy card industry, but new people coming into the hobby might not know this. I think I'm going to get a few different reactions to this video. The first one being people saying, obviously that happens, it's always happened, it's no surprise. The second group of people will maybe be surprised, maybe newer people to the hobby, and it might affect their decision making going down the line. And the third group will probably just not agree with me and say it doesn't happen, but I'm very confident in the 5 or so years I've been in the hobby, and looking back further than that as well, that this has happened pretty much the whole time. And yeah, it's something that no one really talks about. I constantly see other pages spruiking the new releases, and that's completely fine. Obviously, they're the most exciting part of the hobby, that there's new stuff coming out, new parallels, new players, rookies, all that kind of thing. But I think it's important to have a good knowledge base as well in the hobby, and seeing how prices usually travel in the long run, because some people get into the hobby having one perception and then get bitten in the ass a bit a year or so down the line. So the secret I want to talk about is that 99% of new product goes down in value over the long term. And I'm saying it's one of the worst kept secrets, because if you just look at how the releases track, if you look at the prices when they first come out, and then you look at them in 6 months' time, you can see this downward trajectory. But people often forget about that because they go on to the next release, so they forget to look at how the past releases have gone. I think it's important to get into a couple examples straight away. And what better examples than cards I've talked about earlier on my own channel, because I know those prices were correct at the time. I've made videos talking about Footy Stars Prestige, Optimum, all those releases. So I have a few examples of cards I specifically talked about in my previous videos, and I'm just going to go through them now. So in my first ever video, I talked about the Dusty Gold Team Coach card, the Cardcraft card. When I talked about it, it must have been in March 2021. It was selling for about $1,100, and I actually remember it going past this, because this is just when Team Coach came out. It was selling for about $1,100, and then it got up to about $1,500, I think, which is super high. At the moment, there's one on sale for $780 or best offers, so it's probably around $700 I'd take, which is about a 30% decline in value over 9 months or so. And you might think that's not a huge loss, but I would predict that to keep going down over time. And losing $300, $400, $500 in 9 months is never good, and it doesn't keep people in the hobby. Another example I had in one of my eBay expedition videos, one of the real early ones, might have been the first one even, was the Harry Mackay marquee. So that was the first round of marquees in Footy Stars. One sold at release for $676. I said in the video, within 18 months, I think it's going to be under $200. And currently there's one on eBay for sale for $400 best offer. I would predict that this seller would take about $250 for it. So that's at least a 50% decrease from the $676 original selling price, which is again a huge hit to take. Another example, Jack Riewoldt, Coleman Predictor. Well, this is actually the Richmond one, but if you remember, Riewoldt was actually leading the Coleman early in 2021, didn't end up winning it, Harry Mackay did. So the Richmond Coleman Predictor was selling for $300 at this point, and now one just sold for $31.50, so that's a 90% decrease. And I think an important thing to say, which I missed with Harry Mackay, is that Harry Mackay had an amazing season. He couldn't have played any better, yet his marquee price still dropped by 50%. So it's not a case of him having a bad season and becoming irrelevant. It's not a case of footy cards becoming less popular. They actually became a lot more popular as the year went on. So with footy cards becoming more popular and Mackay having a great year, the cards still fell 50%, which is important to keep in mind. Another example which I talked about was the Dusty Marquee, which is in the Footy Stars Prestige release. This was selling for about $2,000 on release, and at the moment there's one on sale for $1,800 best offer. They'd probably take about $1,500, I'm guessing, which once again, people might not say that's a big haircut, but it's still 20% over 6 or less than 6 months. And I think losing $300 to $500 in that time frame is actually quite a big hit to be taking. The last example I have, and I kept a pretty close eye on this card, just because I was doing the Dustin Martin base rookie experiment and people were kind of getting on my back about them selling for over $100, and I wanted a card to be able to compare it to show that it's a much more safe investment in the long run than these newer cards. So a CJ10 Dustin Martin base rookie right now would probably sell between $120 to $150 in my opinion. Whereas this card, the Dustin Martin Orange Parallel from Footy Stars 2021, was selling at about $150 at release and maybe even more when it first released, and now it's selling for roughly $70. So that's a 60% decrease. So when comparing it to an older card, an older, more stable card, let's say the Dustin Martin Champions rookie, which is in this time gone from maybe 100 to about 150, so it's gone up a bit, whereas this has gone from 150 to 7. It's halved in value, more than halved. It's gone down about 60%. Once again, this is all happening while footy cards are having a huge boom in popularity and price. So in a worse market, which is bound to come, I'm not saying it's going to come next year or the year after, but there's always going to be a big dip, whether it be in 6 months, a year, 5, 10 years. It's always going to happen. But that's not happening at the moment, and these cards are still going down, which is quite alarming to me. So with this new information, how can that affect your decisions in the long run? Well, with every new release, people always ask me, what should I be buying? Should I be buying boxes of this release? Should I be buying single cards, inserts, signatures? And my answer is nearly always the same. That's why some of my reaction to new release videos can be a bit repetitive, because it's pretty much always the same, and I've got it written down here. It's very easy to get quite emotional when these new releases come out, feel a bit of fear of missing out. So this will almost always be my reaction to new releases. Number one, if you're a collector and you don't care about the prices, buy whatever you want and enjoy it. That's always number one. Number two, if you're flipping, sell as early as possible. And using this, you might lose a bit of money. Sometimes the box prices, or often the box prices, trickle up over the next month or two, and singles prices can, in some cases, trickle up over the month after release as well. But it's much more risky to hold on for that tiny bit of extra profit. It's much safer, and over the long run, it gives you better returns, more effective returns to sell as quickly as possible, because that's generally when the highest prices are going to be and when you're taking the lowest risk. Also on this point, it's important to build a channel, whether it be on Facebook groups if you're known to be a seller there, or through eBay, or through any other channel, in person maybe. You want to be fair and reliable so that people trust you and people buy from you in future releases or when you're trying to get rid of cards quickly. And number three, if you're trying to invest in cards and new releases, my advice is always don't do it. There's some cards will go up. Some cards you might say, oh, I missed out on this when it first came out. There are examples of that. I think 2019 Supremacy is one example. When they released, it was quite cheap, and then more people came into the hobby, so the prices went up. But that's a unicorn. That doesn't happen very often, and you might miss out on some events, and people always remember the things they missed out on, but they don't remember the losses they take. They get all hyped up from the wins, but not the losses. So some things will go up, but the deck is always stacked against you if you're investing in newer releases. And the final bit of advice with this is, if you're holding, I wouldn't hold individual cards. I'd hold the box sealed. In that case, it's a lot more safe and constant with the prices rather than huge swings with individual cards. So in summary, people are going to deal with this information as they will. As I said at the start of the video, some people will just flat out reject it and say, oh, but the next release is different. It's got this new shiny insert and this and that, and not agree with what I'm saying, and that's completely fine. But this video is mostly for the new collectors, because I think it's only fair to give them the knowledge that cards from new releases generally go down. 99% of the time, these cards go down. So do with the information or the knowledge as you will, and I'll see you next video. Cheers.